Mesdames et messieurs, the greatest festival of our contemporary society, the Olympic Games, is about to begin. This is gonna be close.
Oh! They're all completely gassed! They've given it everything on the global bucket! Oh, yeah! Go! Oh!
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. But that is an Olympic championship.
Ready?
Hello and welcome to another episode of Keep the Flame Alive, the podcast for fans of the Olympics and Paralympics. If you love the games, we are the show for you. I am your host, Jill Jaracz, joined as always by my lovely co-host, Alison Brown. Alison, hello. Happy Olympic and Paralympic year. How are you?
I am so excited. I spared you this year because in our New Year's show past, I had noisemakers. But I have spared you that. But I'll just say, Happy New Olympic and Paralympic year! Happy New Paralympic and Olympic year!
It's so exciting. I cannot believe they are like just a couple weeks away.
I know. We are now in the month where you're leaving.
Yes. And that's
Yeah.
really bizarre.
Are we ready?
No, absolutely not.
No.
And we have talked about how the Italians will say, yeah, we're getting it done. And all of a sudden there's like the last minute scramble. I really feel like that has set the tone in my own life of preparing for these games. There's
We are
going to be a lot of...
not being very like they were in Tokyo. Everything was all set and ready to go, months ahead of time. That is not us.
No, not this time around. I feel like I'm flying by the seat of my pants.
I know.
That's-
There's a lot of lists.
Yes.
There's a lot of notes apps.
Yes.
There's a lot of fingers crossed.
That too.
And that's just by the organizers. That's not even us.
But I can tell you, that's all in my life as well. There's going to be a lot of praying that Italian through osmosis works. You never know. But we are kicking off the year. It's New Year's Day as this episode airs. So we are going to kick off the year with figure skating. This is the time when many national Olympic committees are in the midst of picking their teams. So we are previewing the probable competition with Sarah Hughes. Sarah is not the Olympic champion, Sarah Hughes. And along with Olympians Ashley Wagner and Adam Rippon, she hosts the figure skating podcast, The Runthrough. And for the last 12 years, she has worked at NBC Sports on the research and production side, including some Olympic figure skating assignments. So
And let me tell you, she has forgotten more about figure skating than I have ever known. This woman's encyclopedic knowledge is the only thing I knew more is stuff because I'm older than she is.
Right.
Like the stuff that I remember that she wasn't born yet for. Otherwise, this woman knows it all.
I know, it's fantastic. We talked with Sarah on December 8th, just after the Grand Prix final, to get a read on what we can look forward to at Milano Cortina 2026. Take a listen.
Not Olympic champion, Sarah Hughes. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Yeah. Every time I start a new podcast recording of any kind, I'm reminded that I still have not won an Olympic gold medal. So it's a thrill to be introduced by my mediocrity. Thank you for having me.
You are among friends. We have not won an Olympic medal
No.
either.
I mean, look,
No.
most people haven't, is kind of where I've ended up, is I'm in the majority. You know what I mean? So it's all good.
Yes, but
I'm
you
excited.
Have NBC Sports experience at
I
the
do.
Olympics.
I
So
do,
You are
yes.
close to that.
Yeah. Yes, working the Olympics is almost like winning them. That's what I always
It is
say.
exhausting, I will say that.
I would say it might be more exhausting. I don't know. Maybe not as emotionally exhausting, but the physical toll of working the Olympics on the TV side is it's hard to describe. You just run on adrenaline the whole time, and then if you're me, you get sick immediately the day after it's over. Your whole body just crashes.
or if you're like Jill and I, you get sick during Paris.
Oh no. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard. It's hard to like be pushing through and not sleeping, and you're on your feet all the time, and if I don't know what you guys were doing there, but if you're going venue to venue, like it's exhausting.
In terms of TV production, I know you've done some research.
Mhm.
You've been a researcher, but what else have you done in terms of TV production?
I have done a lot of different things. I won't bore you with my entire resume, but in terms of Olympics specifically, yes, I was an Olympics researcher for quite a long time at NBC, which sort of entails interviewing athletes and gathering information about rules and competition format and things like that to help our production teams plan for broadcasting the Olympics. And then I also kind of eventually evolved into a sort of talent producer slash producer role that I played that role primarily on gymnastics in the summer and figure skating in the winter. I was on figure skating for a long time first, and then they needed someone to do gymnastics, and I think they thought, well, it's a judge sport, Sarah can do it, and so I kind of had to learn that one on the go. And then I've done a lot of different things. I've done some like co-producing. I've done some talent specific producing. I've done research. I've done actual live line producing. I produced rhythmic gymnastics last summer in Paris. So I've done a bunch of different things and it's fun. I'm going to be working on Gold Zone for Milan. So if you're familiar with the Gold Zone experience, we debuted. It's in the style of NFL Red Zone. You have basically a quad box, and we can show a bunch of different events happening at once. And we actually have the host of NFL Red Zone that comes and hosts Gold Zone, and we jump around to different medal events. And we'll put if something really exciting is happening in one specific event, we'll go full screen to that, and then we'll jump back around to something else. So that's what I'm going to be doing for Milan, and yeah, so I've done a lot of different things, and that was a long-winded way of telling you that.
That's okay. We like to go deep.
So you do the amazing podcast, The Runthrough, with Ashley Wagner and Adam Rippon. How did that come to be?
It was Ashley's idea. She gets credit for sure for the conception of, what she did was she wanted to do a podcast with Adam or like a YouTube show, basically. And they asked me if I would kind of help them produce it. And, so I thought, yeah, great. And they said, you should just get on the recordings with us. And it can be like one of those where every once in a while, like the producer chimes in and you can be sort of just like, sort of like you're watching on late night comedy shows where the host always has this guy on the side that occasionally he has to chime in. Like that was sort of, I think, what the vision was for all of us originally. And then over time, we started talking more on it. I started talking more on it and just sort of became a third host. I still do a lot of the editing and producing for the show, but so do they. It sort of merged into this sort of three-way, like we all equally do hosting, and Adam and I do a lot of the editing together. You know what I mean? So it just sort of evolved like that. But it was Ashley's idea to do something with Adam, and they wanted my help because of my production experience. And it turned out that it just we liked the banter and the rhythm of the show with three people a little bit more than with two. And we started it in a year when Ashley was pregnant. And so she needed to eventually go on a maternity leave. So then I really had to be talking. So I had to kind of come out of the back seat. And I mean, we just love doing it. It's very much a passion project. Like, I don't know how often you guys listen to it, but we don't do any ads on the show or anything. Like we are just we're just vibing, you know what I mean? Like I just feel like I'm getting on the phone to talk to my friends about something we all really like, and it's been such a fun thing, and it's been great to just I feel so connected with fans and with skaters to some degree, I know that some of the skaters are listening to it, and I feel like we just like really have sort of this little community that came out of doing this show because people love the inside jokes, and they get repeated and they get put on, people makes t-shirts and whatever. And it's been so much fun. It's awesome.
Well, it's been a lot of fun to listen to.
Thank you.
So for today, we want to go. So when we're recording this, the Grand Prix season's done, but nobody's been named to their Olympic team. So just as depending on when we air the episode. But we want to go through discipline by discipline and just kind of see where we are at this point.
Sure.
So let's start with pairs.
Okay, let's start with pairs. I didn't know where you were going to go.
We're going to start with kind of, I don't want to say the least interesting.
I think I would fight you on that because I actually think pairs got very interesting to me this fall, more so than it has been in the last few seasons. I mean, pairs is certainly, I mean, I'm American, obviously. Like, pairs is certainly the discipline that the Americans are the least involved in terms of being contenders. But I think that the discipline itself is quite interesting. The Grand Prix final, just so for people who don't really follow figure skating closely, the figure skating season is essentially divided into two halves, the fall and then the post fall. I don't want to call it the spring because a lot of it happens in winter, but basically from, October to December, there's a series of international events that are called Grand Prix events. There's 6 events that skaters go to, a maximum of 2. They get assigned those of the events that they're going to. And you earn points based on your placements at your Grand Prix, your 2 Grand Prix. And then the top 6 point earners go to the Grand Prix final, which just happened this weekend. Historically, the Grand Prix final is the very best indicator of what is going to happen at the Olympics or at the World Championships in the same season, because it on the regular Grand Prix early in the season, they intentionally seed it so that the top skaters don't go against each other right away. So the Grand Prix final is usually the first time we see the very best skaters up against each other. And so the Grand Prix final is easily my favorite event of the year. It's compact, it's high stakes, it's really interesting, predictive. You learn a lot. I think you learn a lot about the skaters. I learn a lot every year about my own taste, where once I'm seeing all the skaters back to back to back, I sometimes, like, my opinions will change on what I thought of the programs now that I'm seeing it next to that other program. Like, I feel like that happens to me every year where I have a change of heart about somebody or someone's program or whatever it is. So that's the
Pairs.
setup
Right,
of
so
what
for
the Grand
pairs,
Prix final is. Yeah.
I'm thinking we have 4 pairs with podium potential.
I would tell you we probably have 6.
Okay.
So the way that the Grand Prix final went was Riku Miura and Ryuichi Kihara from Japan won. Somewhat controversially within the skating world, they made a couple mistakes in their free skate and they had a little mistake in their short program too. And Sarah Conti and Niccolo Macci from Italy got second, and they were clean, completely clean in both programs. So there was, there was talk about should they have won the event. I think it's you're splitting hairs with these teams because they're both really, really good. And the thing that I think about is that this Grand Prix final took place in Nagoya, Japan, and the Olympics will take place in Milan, Italy. And you're talking about a Japanese team and an Italian team who are really close. And so I don't, I feel for Sarah and Nicolo, like, for this weekend, because I'm sure they feel like, man, like, what more can we do? They did 2 incredible programs, but I could see this result flipping in Milan. That being said, there's a German team, Minerva Haza and Nikita Volodin, who got third here, but they got third in part because of a big mistake in their short program. They won the free skate, and so they, I think, with 2 clean programs, can easily and should easily be on this podium and could win. They are probably the most textbook team that we see in terms of actual figure skating pairs elements. They look like, I always say to Adam, they look like they are doing the AI version of an element that you would show somebody, is like, this is how it should look, right? That you would put in the judging, teachers thing to show a judge, this is a perfect element. Like, a lot of their pair elements are like that. I think they're a little less developed on their artistic side, and so sometimes they don't make as big of an emotional impact, which is part of your score, of course. But if they do 2 clean programs, I mean, they didn't do 2 clean programs here, and they were 4 points off the lead. So if they do 2 clean programs, I mean, they can win the Olympic gold medal. Deanna Stellato Dudek and Max Deschamps from Canada are world champions from a year and a half ago. I mean, it'll be 2 years once we get to Milan, but I mean, they always have a chance to me because they are really emotionally impactful. They have an amazing, very intense short program to Carmina Burana. It's crazy. She does a backflip. And so they're great. They've had some struggles this season, just like being consistent. So I think they have the potential to be on it. They're trending in the wrong direction, but they still have the potential. And then we also can't forget that a team that was not even here, Sui and Han, who won the last Olympics, they were the first ones out for Grand Prix final qualification. But I don't think of that as really being disqualifying when you're talking about Sui and Han, because they just came back to competition this fall. So they're sort of like getting warmed up. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't put it past them. They don't go to the Grand Prix final. They take a couple months to really train and get into the right kind of shape before Milan. I would not be surprised if they show up in Milan and they're right there in the podium mix again. I mean, they are, one of the best teams that we've ever seen, certainly in this century. And, so you can never really count them out. And then there's a Georgian team, Metelkina and Berilava, who got fourth at the Grand Prix final just now. And they also, kind of like Minerva and Nikita from Germany, are really excellent on like the actual elements, the pair elements. And so when they're clean, which is that's an if, but when they're clean, they're very impressive too. And pairs is a volatile event, right? Because it's these like really big acrobatic throws and lifts and twists and jumps. And so typically you're not going to see all six of the teams I just said go clean. It's going to come down to who skates the best. And that's really exciting.
So you mentioned backflips. That is
Yeah.
now legal.
Yes.
Do you know any reason why the ISU said, okay, it's going to be legal now?
I honestly think that the ISU, a lot of their motivation for some of the different changes they've made over the past, call it 6 to 8 years, is to try to modernize the sport and make it more spectator friendly. So an easy way to say that is a backflip is more likely to go viral than a spin. And, it's a cool feature. And I think that the reason that they didn't allow it was primarily for, safety. But I think they've sort of decided that, hey, like, we need to put that in the hands of the skaters and the coaches to know what risks, they are willing to take, obviously hoping that everybody is risking within reason and knowing that they're going to land something. But yeah, I really think it was just kind of to make it a little more fun for the audience.
How do cartwheels on the ice then fit it? Because I'm not sure that's more fun for the audience.
Yeah, I don't know. The cartwheels on the ice is it's a contentious issue amongst skating purists. It can be sort of a fun feature depending on the like tone of your program. I mean, if you're doing something that's like La Strada, which sort of has this almost carnival feel to it, then okay, like sure, a cartwheel, why not? But a lot of the time it feels a little out of place to me. But the skaters can get, some extra creative execution. They can get credit for like a difficult entry or exit into a spin if they sort of cartwheel into it, which we see a lot. So yeah, I think again, I think the ISU is interested in just making skating something that is fun for audiences and cool for people to watch, and something that kids want to try too, like for participation. And so I think some of those like fun, cool, different elements that aren't really like the pure skating, I think a lot of the motivation comes from that.
Who do you think's going to pull it off?
In the pairs, who do I think? I honestly, after this weekend, I think the Italian team is going to win the Olympics. I actually do, which is crazy. If you asked me a year ago, I would say they're fighting for bronze. That's like what I would have told you a year ago. If I had talked to you 3 years ago, I don't know that I would have even said that, you know what I'm saying? But they have come such a long way in their skating, and I was so impressed with the way they skated at the Grand Prix final this weekend. And I think if they skate like that in front of a home crowd at an Olympics where Italy really, this is their very best medal chance, I just think that probably ends up going their way if they can do that, if they can recreate that again. Again, it's a big if.
I'm with you on that one. That's the one where I'm like, oh, I want them to pull it off.
I do too. I mean, it's hard. Like, when you watch skating, like you get attached to all of them, right? I don't want to root against anybody. I love all these. I'd be happy for any of these teams to win Olympic gold. And so, I mean, it's tough, but if you made me predict something right now, that's who I would take.
Okay. The discipline that defies all predictions, ice dance.
Yeah, defies all predictions and at the same time is the easiest the easiest one to predict sometimes.
The first thing I want to know is the ISU punking us every time they pick a rhythm dance?
Yes. Well, if you are a skating purist, yes,
I mean,
they
even
are.
without being a purist, this one, the last year I thought teams did a great job making that theme work.
Wait, last year was what theme?
Last year was 50s, 60s, 70s dance, social dances.
Yeah, so they had a broader this year it's 90s specifically and last year they had a like wider range of decades they could use, which I thought was better because not everyone should be doing 90s programs. That doesn't suit everybody's strengths, right? And so when you force them all into one decade, there's just a lot less variety of music that is in one decade than is in 3 or 4 decades, like we saw last year. And so it doesn't allow for us to see as broad of a range of expression for the different teams that are very different and have really different strengths. And they also have really emphasized with the 90s theme that it's sort of like dance party and they want it to be really fast and they want it to be like they want the tempo to be up 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 and that can be kind of grating over time. Like you watch that over and over and over again, you eventually feel like you've been watching the same program for an hour. And in some cases you've seen like 6 Backstreet Boys programs in some cases, you know what I mean?
Did anyone choose the Macarena?
Not that I can think of. There's a long
That's
list of 90s
that's
music that
disappointing.
went unchosen, and it's devastating.
I also question a lot of the fashion choices with this because clearly you can tell that nobody who was alive in the 90s was involved in these
Yeah,
costume choices.
you can tell who was alive and who wasn't. I'll say that. I will say that. And I will say that about the costumes and about the skating. You know what I mean? Sometimes I don't mean that as a good thing. Sometimes the music feels like too fast and almost like too young for some of the teams that do have more like artistic maturity. It's weird to watch them try to almost like juvenile themselves up to do this dance party thing. So, are we being punked? I hope so. If that means that Ashton Kutcher is going to come out and tell me the theme is changing.
Are Chalk and Bates from the US still the favorites?
That is a good question.
Guillaume Cizeron, the reigning gold medalist, comes back this season, new partner, and has kind of been tearing up the rule book in terms of waiting his turn, as you
Yeah.
often see in ice dance.
I don't think that people who have won the Olympics have to abide by wait your turn rules. I really don't. I don't think you should have to. And Guillaume is possibly the best male ice dancer we've ever seen. Truly. I mean, he's the best skater in the world, period. And Laurence is not far behind him, his new partner, which is remarkable. It's remarkable that Guillaume has somehow found 2 different partners in this life that match him so well and are so talented. But yeah, to your point, the rest of the teams going through this Olympic quad kind of had their hierarchy mostly figured out. And the re entry of Guillaume with Laurence completely disrupts that hierarchy. And it disrupts it not because he's being unfairly rewarded, it disrupts it because like I just said, he is the best skater out there and they are the best skaters and we're talking about pure skating skills. They are the best skaters in the world right now, I believe. That being said, ice dance is not a skating skills competition only, right? It's performance, right? It's performance, it's acrobatics, it's creativity, it's leaning into the things that you're really good at. And Maddie and Evan have done a great job of finding the lane that works for them. And they are also great skaters, right? I'm not sitting here being like everybody else is bad and Guillaume is good. Everybody is very good. I think he's better, and I think Laurence is incredible as well. But I think you end up sort of in this, okay, what are they going to do? Because you have this team, Chalk and Bates, who have won 3 straight world titles, who do a great job I don't say like appeasing the judges, but I think they are really good about making adjustments to their programs throughout the season to follow the feedback that they're getting from judges and officials. And so they are really good at playing the game essentially. And while they do that, staying true to a vision, and they're, Maddie in particular is a great performer, they really suck you in. They are like really fun to watch. And so I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be really close. Laurence and Guillaume got second at the Grand Prix final, but they had some mistakes here that one of them, Laurence, like her skate just got caught on her dress and she fell, which is incredibly fluky and unusual. And, that's not something you count on happening. I think Maddie and Evan are the only team that can beat Laurence and Guillaume. I don't know if they will when it comes down to it or not. They did this weekend, but I'm frustrated because going into this Grand Prix final, I said on our podcast when we were previewing it, I said the thing that I don't want is for there to be big mistakes, because then we won't really know how the judges feel about these teams. And so, you watch Laurence and Guillaume get second with big mistakes. So you don't really know what that means. Would the lack of mistakes have made up the deficit? I don't know. I think it would have been really, really close. And then it would have been just a complete toss up.
You mentioned getting your skate caught in your skirt, because Madison Chalk's skirt this season makes
It's
me
very
so
long.
It
Yeah.
makes me so angry. Like, it is unreasonable how angry I am at this costume.
Yeah. Yeah. She's got her heels dug in a little bit about it, I think.
Yeah. What is the scuttlebutt in the skating world about this? Are other people as upset as I am, or is it just my lack of finesse here?
I certainly think other people are nervous for her, for that to cost them. Absolutely. And, like, I hesitate to put this in the universe at all, but Maddie and Evan do not have the best track record at the Olympics specifically. They took a devastating fall in their free dance 8 years ago in Pyeongchang. It was awful. And they have like just had kind of fluky mistakes at the Olympics like that. And so I just like, it makes me nervous to like invite that in at all if you're them, right? But Maddie designs their costumes. She designs a lot of other people's costumes, and she has a vision for what this should look like and what it should be. And she's, they're practicing with that skirt on. She has like a practice version of the skirt. And who am I to tell them that they can't do it, right? I don't think. And what's funny is way back in 2010, Tessa Virtue had a skirt that was quite long, and people were all like, oh no, like, like, don't do that. This is like something bad is going to happen. And then she won the Olympics. So, there's a precedent for this kind of thing. And I hope that it works out for Maddie the way that it worked out for Tessa. But yeah, I feel your pain watching it. It's scary.
And to take a step back and also touch on something I wanted to ask. I like ice dance because they do have the wacky programs and they have wacky themes. And Chalk and Bates are doing a Matador and Bull program.
They
correct?
are. Yes.
So she is
He's the
dressed,
bull.
and she
She's
is
the
dressed as-
matador.
yes, with a high-low skirt
Yes.
that is supposed to be the cape.
Correct. Yes. So that he, the bull, charges at the cape is sort of that's the running theme and the reason that the skirt is needed to complete the vision. But it's scary. It's scary. I get it.
Do we have other unique visions in ice dance this cycle?
Yeah, I mean, so I think that Piper Gillis and Paul Poirier, who are from Canada, who have been on the world podium several times over, and who are definitely in the podium mix for Milan, have always had a really clear artistic vision of what they want to do. And it's usually off the beaten path a little bit. They don't do a lot of, call it like traditionally romantic programs, which a lot of ice dance is. We see people do Romeo and Juliet, or, even I could even argue the Matador and the Bull is kind of just a play on a romantic program in some ways. You know what I'm saying? So Piper and Paul have never really conformed to that. And they have brought back a free dance this year called Vincent, which I don't know that I'd call it wacky. It's not. It's actually very beautiful. but I think it's really unique, which is nice. It's different than the types of programs we see a lot. And then, at this Grand Prix final, a team from Lithuania, Alison and Saulius Ambrulevich's, they have a wacky free dance that is like sort of, I use the word voidy a lot to like describe some of the things that skaters do, but they have sort of like they're doing God is a DJ. I don't know if you know that song, but it's like it's just this sort of like weird techno-y program that you're just like, okay, sure, because it works for them, So you're like, all right, I'm just gonna let that go, I guess. And so, yeah, I mean, there's always people who are doing things that are really out there in ice dance. I think there's actually some really voidy, fun, out there programs in the singles disciplines this year. But yeah, I'd probably single out Alison and Silas's free dance as being like the voidy one of the top group for sure.
And for our listeners who aren't aware what the void is, what is the void?
You know what? Your guess is as good as mine. I know I made this term up. Yeah, so I made up a term. I sort of made up, you know, m- my friends started calling programs voidy before I did. I picked it up from them and then I kind of like translated that into, like we have some skaters who are like children of the void. I think of the void as this weird dark abyss where I don't know. The like weirdos are celebrated and live and they come out to, show their weird specific weirdness. You know what I mean? I don't know. That's kind of how I think of it. It's like it's this sort of like swirling black hole that just like the most kind of creative, unique ideas come out of, and the skaters who are sort of just doing something that's not very traditional.
There's no
So,
Romeo and Juliet in the void.
no,
No.
there's not.
Here in the US, there was a big brouhaha hullabaloo about the Shibatanis coming back.
There
But
was.
well, I think NBC has pushed them forward and, they got a few sponsorship deals.
Yeah. I mean, the Shibatanis are, I don't know what to think of what's gonna happen at nationals. So I mean, I'm sure you've covered this already, but the US team will be picked in about a month at the US championships at the first week of January. And two US ice dance teams just competed at the Grand Prix final. Chalk and Bates, obviously, who won it, and then Emilia Zingis and Vadim Kolesnik. And I think because of their success on the Grand Prix this season and having qualified for such a prestigious event as the final, I feel pretty good that those two spots are pretty solidly theirs. And so that leaves one spot and three teams in my mind competing for that one spot. And the Shibatanis are sort of a wild card because they're, just started competing again on the Grand Prix 6 weeks ago, and they've competed twice. And their scores did go up. They took feedback on their programs after the first time they brought them out, and they made changes and adjustments, and they have a brilliant coach, Marina Zoeva, who has been, hugely successful in ice dance over the years. So I really don't feel comfortable ever counting them out because they, like I was saying about playing the game, the Shibatanis really know how to play it. They always did when they were, actively competing back in the earlier quads. But you look at, the other two teams, Christina Carrera, Anthony Ponomarenko, and Caroline Green and Michael Parsons, who have been grinding away while the Shibatanis have not been competing. And you think about this sort of like wait your turn thing. And are the Shibatanis special enough? Is their material special enough this year, blowing you away kind of thing, to jump that line the way we talked about Guillaume and Laurence doing, right? I don't know. They are doing an old program that they did many years ago, a reworked version of Fix You by Coldplay. I don't know if that will be rewarded as much as teams who have, been trying to do like, what, Caroline and Michael have a really voidy free dance. I forgot about them when we were talking about that. They have such a voidy free dance. But like these teams who are really trying to be creative and to, and change. And the other thing is that ice dance has changed a lot since the Shibatanis last competed. A lot of the elements that are required are new since they last competed, or they're reworked in a different way, or they have different requirements to get the high levels that you need. And so I think the Shibs are really playing a lot of catch up here. But if you're seeing a trend of your Caroline and Michaels or your Christine and Anthony's having inconsistencies or getting low scores, and you're seeing the Shibatanis, even though they're still a little bit freshly back, if you see them trending in the opposite direction, you could see a committee making a calculated risk that you think the Shibatanis would ultimately score better, place better than those other two teams in an Olympic field. I don't know. And like it's not all discretionary like that. There's a mathematical component to the way they give out these spots that takes into account all your competitions for the last year. The Shibatanis do get some credit for having been Olympic medalists last time they were competing, but they don't have any of the points from most of the last year. They've competed twice on the Grand Prix. They weren't at the World Championships last year. They weren't at Nationals last year. So they are really in like a catch up, but I do wonder if they make it close enough and they're able to beat those other two teams at nationals, if that sends them over the edge. I don't know. I know I'm giving you a very non-answer. I'm just sort of setting up the situation, but like I'm watching it along as with everybody else. I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting that in the two disciplines we've talked about, we've had people coming back. Sway and Han have come back and not struggled, but you can see, it's not so easy to just decide,
Yeah.
let's flip the switch on and we're going to be great again. And Guillaume and Laurence, at the beginning of the season, listening to your podcast, they had a little bit of work to do as well. I mean,
Yeah.
they weren't that far removed from competition, but it's interesting. You think, could I make a comeback? And you see how difficult it is in this world.
Yes. Yes. And pairs is a lot more, with Sway and Han. Pairs is a lot more physically demanding. Sway and Han were never a particularly healthy team when they were competing more. So, I said to Ashley and Adam, I said, this might be better for them to just not be at the Grand Prix final and take some time to just stay healthy and train instead of like trying to peak again for another competition. Like just peak for one, just go to the Olympics and see if it works out kind of thing. Ice dance is a little less physically demanding in that, in the way that pairs is. But yeah, but I still think you do see like how hard it is to adjust to, it's not that the Shibatanis can't do the elements, right? But you can see the difference between a team that has been doing the elements for years on end. There's just a level of comfort there that allows for greater speed, for greater flow, for better transitions. The Shibatanis, if you said, hey, go do a 1 foot step sequence, they can do it. But are they going to do it as fast, as like with as complex of transitions in and out of it as a team that maybe is less talented than them, I don't know, but is like has been doing it for 3 years in practice every day? Probably not. And that has nothing to do with talent. That's literally just, it's muscle memory, it's practice. And you can't recreate years of training. You either have the hours in or you don't.
Let's move over to men's.
Can anyone beat Ilya Malinin?
No.
Yeah, even if
Next question.
I know. Well, let me ask you this
no, I
question.
mean,
how many times does he have to fall for somebody else to win?
3, and then somebody else has to be their very best self. Yeah, I mean, assuming he's going to do, roughly the program plan that he did at the Grand Prix final, I mean, there's no mathematical way, at a certain point you like lose the math. Like I'm looking at these scores, like Ilya's base value. So that's before you get points for artistry, it's before you get additional points for, your grade of execution, is 115 points roughly. Okay. Now, for some people who don't watch figure skating, that number doesn't mean anything to you, but the next best person in this field, their base value is 93. So, like, think about how many points that is, like 22 points difference just in the base before he gets rewarded for also executing everything very, very well, because he starts at 115 base value, he ends up at 146 in technical. So you're getting he's getting 30 more points in grade of execution. Like he's getting a score, like a 146 technical only score without the artistry added in, that compares to like the very best scores we see in women's total. And so it's just sort of an insurmountable hill to climb if he lands all these jumps. He's doing 7 quads. We've never seen someone do that before. And he's doing them and making it look easy, and he's doing them cleanly. And there is no amount of performance value, artistic expression, great spins that can make up that gap for somebody else. They're just not worth that. Those things just aren't worth as many points as the jumps are. And that's the way it is.
If Ilya could be artistic, would that help his scores even more?
Yeah, and you know what? I think that Ilya already gets very high artistic marks. Again, I keep referencing sort of the skating purists. You look at somebody like a Jason Brown or a Yuma Kageyama from Japan, who are considered really like the true artists of the world right now in the men's event. It's certainly different. It's a different kind of artistry than what Ilya is doing. But like the 3 artistry marks are skating skills, composition, and presentation. And you think about the composition of a program, Ilya, even though like I don't care for sometimes like the way he's kind of skating back and forth on the rink to just set up another quad, set up another quad, set up another quad, he does take care to put elements on the music in places where they make sense. And that is some of what composition is. And then presentation, I think Ilya is a good performer. I think he can suck you in as an audience member. And I don't, he does his type of quote unquote, his type of artistry is more like he has a style, right? And it's not classical style the way that someone like a Jason or a Yuma is, but it is like this sort of like avant-garde modern style that suits him. And so I don't think that he should be getting like really low artistry scores. I Is Yuma a better artist? Yeah, absolutely. But like I said, even if you gave Ilya like half of what you gave Yuma, he would win. Ilya would win because the jumps are that much more valuable. So it sort of becomes a moot point a little bit. But yes, if he were a better artist, his scores would be better, but he doesn't have that far to go. They are giving him very high artistry scores. Because, if you listen to someone like my co-host Adam would tell you that doing 7 quads is a great performance in its own way. Like he really believes that should count for something, that he is like bringing people to their feet, giving them chills because of the sheer athletic dominance. And so I think there's, again, from a purist standpoint, he's not the most artistic guy out there. He's not doing the most complex skating skills or transitions because he's got to get all these jumps done. But that's the game, right? And, he's maximizing what he does best, which is jumping. And other skaters try to maximize what they do best, whether it's jumps, spins, step sequences, whatever. And again, the bottom line is that the jumps are the most valuable thing. So he wins.
I know you're a big fan of Kageyama.
I am. It's true. Yes. It's like my son. I'm trying to adopt him if he's listening and he needs an additional parent. I know he has Carolina Costner, but I would take him in too.
So we're just going to put him in the silver medal spot for our predictions, just for love.
Yeah.
Also,
Oh,
I
and
mean,
good.
Look,
And,
if
yeah,
if
to be
Yuma
fair.
skates cleanly, he should be the silver medalist. I think his free skate is truly an artistic masterpiece. I really believe that. It's one of the best programs I've ever seen. It emotionally moves me every time I watch it. Choreographed by Lori Nickel, who's like one of the greatest choreographers in skating history and has done some of the most iconic programs, people I've ever seen, from Michelle Kwan all the way to now. And I mean, it's genius. His program is genius. And if he does that cleanly, I don't think anything should beat it, except Ilya will because of the jumps. But this is not an original thought from me, but it's, somebody pointed out online this weekend, Yuma is doing artistically what Ilya is doing technically. He's pushing the bounds of what is sort of this like perfect ideal, right? But one is worth more points than the other. So I would hope that if Yuma skates cleanly, which is an if, love him, it's an if. But if he skates cleanly, I would hope that that wins out, on the day that he creates a moment and that the judges see that this is kind of an artistic ideal that we should be rewarding. And I hope that he gets the silver medal if that's the case.
And then we have a whole bunch of children of the void, I feel like.
Yeah.
In the men's program.
That
One
is
of my
so true.
favorites, Mikhail Shidorov.
Mikhail Shidorov, yes.
He's so adorable. I just want to put him in my pocket and take him home.
Yeah, he's such a nice guy. He is struggling a little this season though. Yeah, he was silver medalist at Worlds last year. He just got 6th at the Grand Prix final out of 6. So, I would say in the singles event, the Grand Prix final is a little less predictive in the sense that you just have to skate clean, and if you don't, then it's going to mess you up at the Olympics, so it doesn't matter. So, I'm not putting Shidorov in a box that he's off the podium because the men are the men and the men are, they're going to fall all over the place, sometimes. And so they can be really up and down with like who's on the podium and who's not. So I wouldn't rule him out, but Mikhail Shidorov has some extremely voidy, weird programs and has, it seems to be kind of tinkering to figure out, what the right recipe is. He went back to his old short program just for this event, so he's ditched the new one that he came up with for this season. But he has the weirdest free skate I've ever seen. I have no idea what it's about. I feel like I'm on an acid trip every time watching it, or I'm like, I don't know what I'm watching. I don't know what's happening. But I love him. I mean, he's awesome to watch. I think he definitely has room to grow artistically. And we talk about like him and Ilya, both men have room to grow artistically, but in figure skating, you get rewarded over time for being consistent, and Shidorov is a little less consistent than Ilya Malinin is. And so Ilya over time has been able to build component scores, build, whereas now he's sort of just like has sort of a baseline that's pretty high because he's a multi-time world champion and because he almost never misses. So that never hurts. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Mikhail Shidorov. Adam Siao-Himfa from France is a big fan favorite. Like people love him, love his skating. He's really emotive and fun to watch, and he can do a ton of quads. He has a backflip. Like he does a lot of the big kind of show-stopping things, but has been a little inconsistent. But if he skates 2 clean programs, he's gonna be right there because he's got a lot of quads in there. I think he can do up to 5 in a program if he's, in the right headspace and, skating well. So again, it's not Ilya, it's not 7, but he can be right up there too. But he, just like Shidorov, has been a little bit inconsistent this season. So I don't know what to expect from him in the big moment.
Back to the void. We have a Pope program themed, for Italy.
Listen, I've been trying to say, does somebody have a line to Pope Leo? Because I feel like he should. I mean, the Olympics are down the street basically from the Vatican. I mean, am I right? I don't know the geography, but I know we're in the same rough general area. I'm like, we got to get him to come and watch this conclave program that Daniel Grassel is doing because, not obviously it's a conclave program, but it's a program by an Italian in Italy. Like, I think, it should be a big crowd pleaser. He should really have the crowd with him. And, Grassel definitely is not my cup of tea artistically all the time, but I think this program has been great for him because it's weird and it's unique, and so it makes him stand out and it makes him really memorable. And so, you like what you're saying is like we have a Pope program. It stands out to you, right? Because it's like that guy is dressed as a cardinal for 3 minutes skating around, and then he rips open the robe to reveal a white robe indicating that he has now become the Pope. And that is happening in the span of a 4-minute program on the ice. Like, that's amazing stuff. That's great TV. It's must see, So I do think if anyone is listening to this who knows somebody at the Vatican, or who just knows somebody in Chicago because Pope Leo is from Chicago.
Yes, he is.
I think we need to get a formal invite out there. And you know what else is Stanley Tucci is working for NBC during these Olympics and obviously was in conclave. So I'm like, we got to there's so many crossover opportunities here. We need Stanley, we need the Pope, we need them in there together watching Daniel Grassel become the Pope at the
with
Olympics.
with a Snoop Dogg take.
Yeah, and let's get Snoop Dogg in there too, just for good measure. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm all for it. That's what I want to see.
So, last but not least, probably the most open discipline is the women's because it feels like when I did the math, depending on who Japan sends, I came up with 10 names that could end up on the podium.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I probably missed a bunch.
Yeah.
There is a lot of women who not only could end up at the podium, but end up with the gold.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that the women's situation is really interesting. Kaori Sakamoto from Japan, who was the Olympic bronze medalist in Beijing, sort of shockingly, she was like in that crazy hubbub at the end with the Russian skaters where, she's just sort of sitting there as Anna Sherbakova realizes that she wins. And Kaori's like, wait, did I just get on the podium? Because everyone expected the Russian sweep. And after that, she won 3 straight world titles, and then she got second this past year to Alyssa Liu from the United States, another comeback. Although, I would call Alyssa's comeback a little different than like the Swayan Han, the Guillaume, the Shibatanis, because she probably still had more to do and is so much younger than they are. So Alyssa Liu comes back. She's being super casual and is like, sure, this is fun. And she just wins the world title. Almost by accident is how it appears. You know what I mean? Where it's just, she's just like doing her jumps. And then all of a sudden, other people didn't do all their jumps and she wins the world title, which sets the entire women's discipline on this interesting trajectory for this Olympic season. And so I think that Kaori Sakamoto is the best skater in the world, period. She doesn't have the highest tech ceiling because she's not doing high value jumps like the triple axel, like a quad, but she is one of the best jumpers with the jumps that she does. So, however, take that however you want, but she's an incredible skater, like a really, really great emotional performer. She's announced that she's going to retire after this season, which I think adds kind of an extra layer when you're watching her skate this season that, helps her. That I think that helps that judges are sort of like appreciating what they have while they still have it because she's so, so good. Just has like the most incredible foundational skating skills. And I think that if Kaori does 2 clean programs, it's going to be hard to put someone ahead of her and not have a lot of people really frustrated with that. She got third at the Grand Prix final, but she made a big mistake in her short program and she would have won without it. And that's with 2 women ahead of her, one of whom's doing a triple axel, and one of them is Alyssa Liu, who, again, Alyssa, I think looking at this Grand Prix final, you have 4 Japanese women, you have Alyssa Liu, and you have Amber Glenn from the US. Alyssa is really probably if you had told me Alyssa got 6th at the Grand Prix final in this field, I would have said, yeah, okay. Because her foundational skating skills are not as strong and she's not doing a triple axel or like a high ticket element like that, right? But Alyssa, come hell or high water, is going to skate her program cleanly. She's going to just check off her jumps and do them. And she's going to have a good time doing it, which sucks the audience in, makes them have a good time because she just looks like she's having a good time. And all of the other women this weekend made mistakes in their programs. So Alyssa ends up on top. Again, I don't know if that's predictive of anything because, like I was saying in the ice dance, it's like when you see big mistakes, it's harder to know then, okay, well, how would they have evaluated it if it was all clean? I don't know for sure. I don't think Alyssa would have won if everybody was clean here. Amber Glenn made a really big mistake. I think Amber Glenn has as high a ceiling as anyone in the world. She also has, had a lot of inconsistency that plagues her at big events sometimes. But I think she has just as high a ceiling as Cowrie does because she has an incredible triple axel. Amber's a great performer. She has one of the best programs of the season, and her Madonna in the short program is just a huge crowd pleaser. And it's like an awesome program that Caitlin Weaver choreographed for her. If she can go clean, I think she's on the Olympic podium. And I think she'd be ahead of Alyssa. And, I think she'd be ahead of a couple of the Japanese women as well. You referenced the Japanese women, so I'll talk about that.
Yes, that getting onto the Japanese team is harder than winning an Olympic medal, I would posit.
I agree. I agree with you. Yeah. So, like I said, just in this field of 6, the Japanese women had 4 of these, 6 women who were the top performers in the fall. They had at least 4 more women who were successful on the Grand Prix, skated quite well on the Grand Prix, who at times in the last few years have been on world podiums, have been on Grand Prix podiums, who are fan favorites who did not make this Grand Prix final. And Japan is pretty methodical about the way they select their team, and they weight the Grand Prix results pretty heavily in addition to their nationals results, which we'll get really soon in 2 weeks. But I think that this Grand Prix final, these 4 are probably the only remaining names in the mix for their 3 spots just because of the math. I just think that that's historically that's how we've seen Japan evaluate its skaters. Now, had Kaori Sakamoto, for instance, had a fluky season and not made the Grand Prix final, I might not say that applies to her. But the other women, for the most part, are a little less experienced, a little less established than a 3-time world champion. And so, they're maybe, not going to get the benefit of the doubt in the way that Cowrie might have. So she's in here. I think she's going to the Olympics. I can't imagine a situation where you don't send someone who's won 3 of the 4 world titles in the quad, right? And then going into this weekend, Monet Chiba, I was thinking, who was on the world podium in Boston with Cowrie and with Alyssa. And I was thinking going into this Grand Prix final, Monet Chiba's safe. She's safe. And then she fell twice this weekend. And I'm like, oh no, like, is she not? She still beat one other, so she was the 3rd of the 4 here. So I think we are probably looking at a Japanese team that is Ami Nakai, who's brand new senior skater this year, who's awesome. She has a triple axel and just has this sort of effervescent performing energy on the ice. She's so fun to watch. You can like feel the youth like seeping off of her as she's skating. It's infuriating. Like, why am I not? I've never been that young in my life. And so, and she's been skating really well. She got 2nd at the Grand Prix final. She's beaten Cowrie twice this season, actually. And so I think it's going to be hard. Again, anyone can have a complete yard sale disaster at nationals because it's a high pressure event. But if everyone is roughly solid, even with some small mistakes, I would guess that Ami Nakai, Kaori Sakamoto, Monet Chiba are the Japanese Olympic team. I think those are, and I think that's what it should be. I think those are their 3 skaters who have been the most consistent and the strongest and who will be the most competitive for Olympic medals in February. We'll see what they do.
And on that team, you are leaving off world medalists.
Yes.
From the previous quad. I mean, these Japanese women, they're gorgeous. I
Yeah.
love the Japanese style.
Yes.
And it's so much fun. Nakai is just
She's awesome. Yeah.
so beautiful to watch.
Yeah.
And the dress is gorgeous and the choreography it's like, my
Yeah.
goodness. Where did you just like open up one of those snow globes and take her out and just pop
Right.
her down?
I know. Well, and especially like she's skating to, what a wonderful world in her free skate. And it really does feel like you're watching someone in a snow globe with that music playing because she's in, this sort of like light blue, like wintry sort of shade with all the glitter. And you're like, wow, this is okay. It's like it's a vision, it really is. And what's amazing about Ami Nakai is, like I said, I mean, first year senior, like she has so much she can improve on still. This is how she's skating right now as such a young like a teenage skater. Kaori Sakamoto is at the end of her career. And I remember, when I first saw her skate in person was in practice at the Pyeongchang Olympics. And she was sort of a surprise on that team. She, hadn't really done a lot internationally, and she skated really well at the Japanese nationals that year. And she got the second Japanese spot. And I remember watching her just skate around, being like, whoa, she's talented. And to look at her now, she's so much more talented now. And so that's how I feel about Ami Nakai is like, I'm like, I hope that we are watching Ami for, the next 8 years, the way that we watched Cowrie just become better and better and better at the craft, because she really has a ceiling that is a lot. She reminds me so much of Cowrie in that way.
We're going to get 2 Russian women.
We're going to get a Belarusian and a Russian.
What do we do with this in terms of where their scores, where we expect their scores to be? Are they following in this kind of recent Russian history where we're just going to throw quads at you and kind of skate around, but blow you out of the water with our numbers?
I think it's possible. Well, so I should say Victoria Safonova, she's the Belarusian in question. She won't do that. She doesn't have quads. She doesn't have, she will do a normal program and probably finish somewhere in sort of the middle of the pack. But Adelia Petrosian from Russia does have a quad toe. She does have 2 of them in her free skate. Yeah, I think it's a question of, how do they manage, scoring that? It's like I was just saying about the men, your artistic scores a lot of times do reflect your experience and what you've done to this point internationally. And she obviously has basically no track record internationally. So I would expect to see her artistic scores be a bit low. That being said, it's the same thing with when you talk about Ilya Malinin. It's like, if she does 2 clean quads, that value is going to be really high. So the other women, and again, like these other women, they do, a lot of them are trying to do triple axels and they have those. But let's think about someone like Cowrie, who's not doing a triple axel and is going to do what we consider a normal program. You take that and you put that against something that has a couple of quads in it, and she's going to be immediately behind in base value by 10 to 15 points probably. And so do I think that Cowrie has the quality in her jumps and her elements, grade of execution and artistry to make up 15 points? I do, yes. So I think that's possible. I think also there's such little like minutia that skating fans think about, but like Adelia Petrosian, because she has no international track record, will skate, I believe, second in the short program because Safonova will skate first, and that won't help with the scores because judges are, basically you're always going to get a lower score if you skate earlier. That's just, sort of historically that's true, in part because, the judges don't have a good gauge on what they're seeing yet. There's nothing to compare it to yet. So they are usually a little more conservative, because they're not sure what they're going to. It's like, on those TikToks where you're like, okay, you're doing a blind rating and they show you like the NFL quarterbacks and you have to pick your hottest NFL quarterbacks 1 to 10 and they show you one and you have to choose what number he is. You're generally not going to put the first one you see at number 1 or number 2 because you're like, well, I don't know who else I'm going to get. And so that's how figure skating judging works a lot. So I don't think that her skating that early in the short program is going to be helpful. But, if she does a strong program, she can end up in the final group in the free skate, and then she will be amongst the higher scorers. And then it will come down to, like I say, can the other women make up in quality what she has in quantity?
In any discipline, other programs that people should make a point of tuning into, even though they're not going to win a medal.
I'm so glad you asked me this. Yes, I have 2 things that I'm going to say. The first one, yes, let's do Jaws. Lara Naki Gutman from Italy is doing a program to Jaws where she is a shark for at least part of the program. And it is so weird and awesome. Like, it works. I remember watching it for the first time. I couldn't believe how well it works, because I really had no faith at all that that was a good program concept. And she does all these, she does a spin where she's sort of she's creating like a dorsal fin with her elbow, and she draws her eyeliner on in the, shape of a fish fin. Like, she's like all in on this, and it's so, so good. And she's a great skater, so she's been skating really cleanly all season. So, and she's going to be, at home in Italy. So she's going to be a crowd favorite. So definitely watch her free skate, the Jaws. And then Vladimir Litvintsev from Azerbaijan. You have to watch this free skate. You really should watch both of his programs. This is like the Void like shot him out of a cannon this year with their best stuff, because he does like a really weird program that has like pew 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 sounds in the short program, but then in the free skate he's doing the Joker, and he does this really campy rendition of being the Joker. And when he's skating well, it really works. Like, he starts the program leaning against the boards in front of the judges and mimes smoking a cigarette, which is, huge, huge props from me, a famous smokers' rights advocate. But, there's a part of the program where he kind of skates in front of the judges and he draws a heart with his fingers at them, and blows a kiss. And like, it's campy, it's weird, it's so fun. Like, he's not gonna win a medal. Period. But he is really fun to watch. So those are two programs that I would identify right off the bat that I don't think people should miss.
Excellent.
Talk for another hour, but
Yes.
we'll control ourselves. Sarah, thank you so much. This has been fantastic.
Of course. Thank you for having me. This is really fun. I'll come back anytime. So you just let me know anytime you need, some Void commentary, and I'll make myself available.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sarah. We will have links to the run through in the show notes. And if you are getting hooked on figure skating but don't know much about the sport, over summer 2025, they did a series called The Lore, where they did deep dives into the history of all four disciplines. And it was pretty amazing. Thank you, listener Meredith, for tuning us into that. But it's hours of podcast, but definitely worth spending the time if you want to know the history of the sport.
And even if you think you know the history of the sport, you will learn so much in this lore and have so much fun doing it. And you will understand why we are fighting for smokers' rights. That's a reference to those episodes and a skater who went a little off the rails, let's say.
Yeah, so it's absolutely fantastic. Do check out the run through. Some of the National Olympic committees have already started naming their teams. Japan was one of the first. Who made the list?
So the women are going to be Kari Sakamoto, Mone Chiba, and Ame Nakai. Very excited about that.
Yes.
Pairs, we're going to see the former world champions, Riko Miuri and Ryuichi Kahara. And then they will be joined by Yuna Nagaoka and Sumatada Moriguchi. The dance team is only going to be for the team event. They will not be competing in the dance event, but it is Yutano Yoshida and Masaya Morita. And then for the men, we're going to have Yuma Kageyama, Kao Miura, and Shun Sato. So this is going to be a very formidable team. I think it's going to be the U.S. and Japan competing for gold in the team event.
Yeah. But we have talked about this before, how excited we've been for the reemergence of Japan and Japanese figure skating.
Yes. I love the style. I love both the men and the women. And now to see pairs and now seeing a dance team that's starting to get some traction is exciting as well, to just see them across all four disciplines.
So they will help make for a super exciting figure skating competition. Because as we talked about with Sarah, there are a lot of people that are in the hunt for the podium. And this will be definitely competitions to tune into. And some of the disciplines will be, we don't know who can really take it home. We have ideas, but not sure.
The women is going to be the discipline where there's no way I can be, well, there's very little way. There's very few ways I can be unhappy with who wins, and there's very few ways I can be happy, because it's like I want 5 different girls to be on that podium. So not everybody can be there unless we have ties and no tiebreakers. But isn't it nice to have a women's event where we can be happy about it again?
Yes. So it'll be fun to watch, and we cannot wait to bring you the competition from Milano Cortina. And really, the only way we can do that is with your support.
Yes, so we have our fundraiser going on. You can find that at flamealivepod.com. There's a pop-up that'll come in our fancy Milan blue. We're being very Italian with our Italian blue. And they're great thank you gifts. And most importantly, it gets the show to Milan so that you can hear all the stories. If you're not going, we will go for you and get all the stories and information that we can only get when we're there.
Exactly. We'll give you the behind the scenes of what goes on, how we get lost in Italy, because I'm sure that's going to happen. But, just give you the flair and feel for what the Olympics is like in a way that you can't get it from your regular Olympics providers.
This is not polished. This is not this is not logistically planned out with a whole team. This is Jill and I braving the winds, braving the snow in the mountain. But you know what? That's the point of the show. That's what makes it fun for us. And I think it makes it fun for all of you out there.
Right. So please help us get the show there. And with your support, we can get there and help bring you the coverage that you want to hear. So I hope you all are going to have a happy new year. Happy 2026. Happy Olympic and Paralympic year. We're so excited to bring you coverage from the games and make this the best Olympic year. And make this the best Olympic and Paralympic year ever.
And if you haven't had enough figure skating, we got more figure skating coming.
That's right. Next week, we will talk with U.S. figure skaters Amber Glenn, Jason Brown, and Spencer Howe. Next week is U.S. Figure Skating Nationals, so we will have on skaters to get you in the mood for that. Thank you so much for listening.
And until next time, keep the flame alive.